a lot of great information for everyone. Just wanted to welcome you all officially, and just wanted to quickly introduce our hosts, our presenters, excuse me, for this presentation about how data analytics can inform back to school planning. We have Julie Fitzgerald, Adam Sabalka from Guide K-12, now Forecast 5 Analytics, and also William Simon from Richland School District 2. And I will step back and let you take away. Oh, I forgot this last time. As we go, if you have any questions, please enter them in the chat. It's in the bottom, in the middle of the toolbar. As we go, just type your questions in and we'll be monitoring throughout. Okay, there you go.
All right, thanks, Ray. I really appreciate it. Again, I'm Julie Fitzgerald, and I was part of the Guide K-12 team. And in February, we were pleased to become part of the Forecast 5 team. So, which has been awesome. And so I'm thrilled to have my co-presenters, Adam and Will, with me today. And, you know, Forecast 5, just a little bit, for those of you that have known Guide K-12, we've been part of tech and learning events for a long time. So, I've had the pleasure to meet many of you, and I wish we could all be in person. But the Forecast 5, I wanted to take a minute and just introduce Forecast 5. And there's a whole host of Forecast 5 products, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But for any of you that were in the digital equity session that just ended, I think you're going to find that our session is going to dovetail really nicely into all the conversation that was happening in the digital equity session. I heard discussions about hotspots. I heard discussions about the digital divide and making sure students have access. There was great discussion about ELL students and ideas on how to make sure that those families would receive the support and the access, and really understanding what their needs were. I heard discussions about prioritization of hotspots, as well as lots of discussion about what happened this spring and the e-learning that went on, and the engagement and the measurement and ideas about that. And so I think all of those things were kind of teed up, and hopefully from what we're going to talk about, we'll provide some additional ideas and answers. So again, we've done our introductions. We're going to talk about what lies ahead, and then we're going to talk about geovisual analytics and remote learning. A little bit about Forecast 5. So we work with over 2,000 school districts in over 35 states, and it's really all about providing decision support tools, and it's everything from budgeting and financial projection tools, district comparison tools, student performance dashboards and engagement measurement tools, as well as Guide K-12 geovisual analytics. And that's kind of the whole suite of products. Now, when overnight student classrooms moved to kitchen tables, as you all know, in March, and answering questions that start with the question where became really, really critical. Being able to figure out students that don't have internet access, where are the students that need hotspots or different access options, where are the areas that we should be doing food distribution, where are the areas that are underserved by the local internet providers. What if we do a different type of schedule this fall? What if we do alternative days? How will we know which students to pull in so we have balanced demographics for those classrooms according to the buildings? And then where there's students that might be opting out, even if we are physically in, if those students choose to opt out and stay online, kind of where are they in the district? How is that affecting building capacities? And what are the demographic makeups of those students? Are they special need? Are there different resources we need to deploy, or thinking about how we're going to educate those students that are staying at home? So with all of that, you know, we just have had so many amazing stories this spring and summer from creative, smart, insightful district leaders all across the country that had to make very, very fast decisions, but really smart, informed decisions as well. And as I was thinking about that type of leadership, Will Simon came to mind. And so I would like to now turn it over to Will and have him talk about kind of all of the things that they did with geovisual analytics pre-COVID and what they're doing, what they did once they needed to pivot, and how mapping has helped with making decisions. So Will, I'll have you turn it over from here and just tell me when you want me to click.
Okay. Are you going to navigate the slides for me, or? Okay.
I can, or I can turn it over to you. Do you want to navigate?
Yes, you turn it over. Go ahead.
All right.
Share my screen. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Julie. Greetings, everyone. Today, I want to share with you a brief case study of how Richland School District 2 in Columbia, South Carolina began to plan for the 2020-2021 school year leading up to coping with the pandemic. I'm going to share with all of you some of the tools used throughout this process and the benefits of data collection and analysis during these times. In the summer of 2019, the district conducted an analysis of one of our fast growing areas in regards to residential growth and concluded that we need to rezone some existing development in order to plan for future growth. We focused on schools in the area and began to analyze current enrollment and demographic data to assess the impact of both schools from an increase in residential growth. And here's where our tools served such a great purpose for us, because we were able to extract, identify, and analyze this data with ease. Here in this slide, you see the location of one of our schools, Bookman Road Elementary, and its attendance boundary, which is the light green area. They were at a current enrollment of 417, but they had a programming capacity of 699. So they were operating at a 59.6% facility utilization rate. And we did some analysis on the community, and it was a very stagnant community. We identified parcels. There were not a lot of large vacant pieces of parcels. We spoke with developers and investors, and there was not a lot of planned growth in that area. However, let me draw your attention to Catawba Trail Elementary on the south side in the spot here. They had a current enrollment of 664 students with a programming capacity of 708. They were already operating at a 93.8% facility utilization rate, and they had a community plan for a lot of growth. And so here, just taking a snapshot of our numbers and using our tools, we were able to easily start formulating a plan. So here, during our scenario planning process, we were able to quickly identify a residential area to consider for rezoning. And what God K-12 allowed us to do was take a deeper dive into information about this particular area. We were able to simply draw a boundary, get demographic and enrollment information and a lot of other information so that we could start the scenario planning process. So here, as we dove deeper into this residential area, you can see we're able to use our tools here. We concluded using our parcel data that's integrated into GUI K-12, that there were 700 homes in this particular development. We had 580 current students in this residential development, 275 of which were elementary students. So we were able to start looking at the impact to both schools. 69 of the 275 students were exercising choice to other schools other than the Catawba Trail Elementary School on the south side there. And we also had 70 military families we were able to identify in this particular area. And this is very important because we were able to target them and connect them to our military liaison person that works in the district office. We did all of this with ease and all of this with our digital tool. And so let me draw your attention to the charts at the bottom. And these are just two charts, a snapshot, if you will, of the pre and post rezoning analysis. Of course, it was a 10-page report with a lot of information in it, but for the sake of time, I just wanted to show you how we were able to draw certain conclusions. and look at things such as enrollment, pre and post rezoning. Bookman Road Elementary would go from 417 to 584 students. We were able to look at things such as poverty and poverty indicators, ethnicity, and the last field, the facility utilization rate, where we were able to make predictions based off the post rezoning analysis, where Bookman Road Elementary would go from a 59.6% utilization rate to 87.3% in a stagnant community. And Catawba Trail Elementary School would go from a 93.8% facility utilization rate to a 73.3%, which would give it room for growth. So we were able to present this information, present maps that we were able to export directly from our digital tool here. And ultimately we gained the confidence of our board, and we were able to achieve a successful rezoning. We had a very transparent process. We also used our tools for communication purposes as well. And everything was planned for the 2020-2021 school year. And of course, the pandemic hit. And so we found ourselves not only planning for growth, but planning for safety with a lot of uncertainty. So we had to shift gears for this particular area, but we did. Our district decided to put together a task force, which is what most districts throughout the nation did. But here again, our digital tools were so beneficial to that process because we had to extract and share a lot of student data, a lot of parcel data. We were able to look at enrollment trends. We were able to look at performance data at our various schools and in certain areas. We looked at ethnicity across the district and in certain areas. And for example, we were able to identify special education students, where they live, and what programs they attended, and overlay transportation routes over it, and really make some good decisions. We were even able to start some capacity analysis with some of the tools that we use, taking into account social distancing, trying to figure out how many students can we accommodate in our schools. Now, of course, as we went further and we wanted to get more into safety analysis and scheduling analysis, we did end up hiring an architectural firm to assist us with that. And they were able to take a lot of the data that we had prepared, we had extracted from our Esri tools and our tools of Guide K-12, and really allow them to complete this project faster than they would usually, quicker than normal. They were able to help us further with safety analysis, such as looking at not only typical classrooms, but looking at atypical spaces and looking at capacities with social distancing. They were able to take into account some of the projected enrollment that we were able to provide them, and then they assist us with scheduling analysis. You know, whether we were going to do an AB, AAB, or ABCD, all of the different options that many of the school districts across the nation were contemplating. And so with that, we were able to make good decisions, very informed decisions, if you will. Our digital tools really came through for us because there was so much uncertainty. We had just come off of a rezoning. We did not have a lot of time. We were working with a lot of committees and teams and organizations and other stakeholders that demanded data from us and wanted to see data in a user-friendly way. We were able to present data using maps and other methods. And our process was very successful. And if you have any questions of me, please feel free to email or call. But I just want to take a moment to briefly share some of the ways that we've used our digital tools and our success story. Thank you so much.
Well, that's awesome. How did you communicate with your families when all the things were changing so fast? What did you do from a communications perspective?
Well, this was great. We were able to filter out military families. We were able to filter out families using our parcel data that did not have children attending the district. So there was a certain type of advertisement that went to them when talking about our rezoning. It focused more on changing traffic patterns and things of that sort, while with our parents who actually had students attending the district and attending schools in the district, we were able to send certain information to them, talking about specific information about the 2 schools that would be impacted. And we did all that with Guide K-12, of course, working with our public information office. We were able to extract that data, put it in the hands of our PIO department, and they were able to send this information out.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
You know, to build on, you know, the last session on equity, you know, the ability, basically any data that's in the SIS becomes embedded in that dot on the map for the students. And so we see districts do everything from what type of device, you know, kind of looking at all the characteristics in the demographic and socioeconomic data to figure out where to put hotspots or where were hotspots. So that's all great information. And from there, we kind of, you know, there's a whole question around access and visualization of the data. And then the other big question that continues to come up from COVID is how are we going to measure our students? How do we know that they're learning? The board's going to ask that. Parents are going to ask, how are you measuring the hybrid or the e-learning experience? And so I'm going to, with that, turn it back over to Adam. And but thank you, Will, and we'll come back for questions from the group for you. And Adam, we'll let you take it from here. Adam, your sound is. Yeah, your sound is off.
How about now?
Better.
Better? Okay. Well, thanks for everybody joining us today. Will's intro there kind of dovetails into what we have been seeing with clients around our product FiveLab. And with FiveLab, we have a variety of different data sets that are ingested into our system, from test scores to attendance, to discipline, to grades. And what has really been top of mind for districts are answering 3 key questions as it relates to this experience and navigating the pandemic. The first being, which students are engaging in e-learning? The second is, which students are doing the work when they are in our e-learning environment, whether that be Google Classroom, Canvas, Schoology, something like that. And the third being, which students are next grade ready heading into this school year, and we may need to do some pre-assessment with. So we're going to try to tackle those one at a time through our dashboards. And as I had mentioned, we hold a lot of different data sets, and we put them under one roof for districts. But top of mind, and the example comes from Northwest ISD in Texas, where they, as was mentioned similarly in Will's presentation, are looking at which students have begun to select a remote learning environment. And their principals, through sending us this information, we're able to see the enrollment of students that have selected remote learning environments, but the admin, including the principals, can have access to answer a key question around which students who selected they want to be remote learners but do not have internet access. And they can simply click that filter and get a nightly feed to which students are responding that way. So the principal of Seven Hills Elementary can simply click on that bar. We call this a dashlet. It's just our little way of describing the graph. And they can see the 7 students that selected that they want to be in remote learning but do not have internet access. Again, the theme that we are seeing is a theme of equity and access, ensuring that students do receive the services that they need and have equal access to the appropriate services. And so, again, in 3 clicks, they're able to see that list of students that they may want to engage those families on. Again, I should point that we are in a demo mode, so all these names are obfuscated, so they were not actually seeing student data. So that it begins to answer the first question, but we've also worked with districts that are, as I mentioned, in Google Classroom environments or Schoology environments to share engagement and activity levels. And we tie through Google Classroom with an API to where certainly Google Classroom will give you analytics around which students are logging in. But what we do in FiveLab is we tie it to your student information system so you can begin to see this information disaggregated. And this is a live feed, so you see a lot of 100% here in terms of students not logging in the last 7 days, and that's because we're in summer. But if you would have logged in over May and June, you would see different percentages at different campuses. And the real interesting piece that we see here are districts saying, who are my IEP students that have not logged in the last 7 days? Because those students may need some different supports where a traditional e-learning environment may not be appropriate for them. So they simply click on the special education bar, and let's see the list of students that haven't logged in the last 7 days by campus. And the district is going out and so reaching those students in a unique way to ensure that they're served. Again, this is all through a live feed of connecting to student information system like Skyward, PowerSchool, and tying it to then your Google Classroom analytics. The question that has arisen most recently is around teachers and making sure that teachers are really supported during this time. And by having the dashboards around the classwork created, we can begin to get a live look into a particular high school and see how many assignments are created within that school by a week-by-week basis, by a class, or even by a teacher. So if we see a low bar, this district's asking the question, again, these are obfuscated teachers, so we are protecting the innocent here, but now where Google Classroom may have been an optional item for a district, it's now become mandatory. And they're looking at classwork created. Certainly it's not the only indicator that describes if a teacher's proficient in Google Classroom or not, but it is an indicator. And so they simply can click to see, after I delivered some PD, did the teacher or is the teacher able to create assignments for their students and in what classes? And again, reach out to provide target professional development. The last item within the e-learning platform is the ability to see what work students are doing. And principals within this district are able to simply click their school and see the percent of late work that's by week within that school. They can even see it by class or by breakdown of LEP, IEP, and so on. Again, you can filter by a lot of different things, but if we want to see the students that have some late work, you can see in Google Classroom, as it begins to populate here, literally the list of assignments by course that still need to be completed. Again, the principals have access to this information, and then they can support whatever student that they need to make sure that those assignments are completed in a timely fashion. And then the last item is this item of, is a student next grade ready? Many students lost 3 months of time, compounded by an additional 3 months of summer. potentially increasing that summer slide. And so what we do within FiveLab is set up a multi-measure indicator that says, is a student grade level ready or not? This district has tied it to absenteeism rates, discipline when they were in school, Fontes and Pinnell assessment scores, NWEA map. And we roll it up to say, is that student ready or not ready? And they simply click this bar at the administrative level of who's not ready going into the next school year. And they get a list of students that they're connecting with here to say, how can we support you? Or is there a pre-assessment that's needed? And if they need a more deep dive into the student's record, we do have a 360-degree view that ties into that student and their proficiency level on various assessment scores over time. So again, that allows districts to get that live look. This is tied to their student information system. It's tied to their e-learning platform to see and ensure equity throughout the district so all students are served. And we then tie it to an equity audit for a district. And here's an example that the districts are looking to track disproportionality to see if those gaps increase or decrease during this time. An example is a passing and failing grade dashboard where this district noticed that certainly where their enrollment disaggregated is located here in this dashlet, the counts of students with Ds and Fs is in this dashlet. They noticed that while 12% of their students with a D or an F were Black or African American, if you combined and cross-referenced the student counts, actually 41% of their students that were Black or African American had a D or an F. A chief area of target for them in terms of their equity work within the district to ensure all students are successful and that gap doesn't widen during this time. So these dashboards are just examples of how districts are answering through nightly analytics to have targeted supports on top of what Will had described through the geospatial tools. Again, to make sure that they minimize the blind spots within the district. So Julie, I'll turn it back to you for any Q&A that you might have around these topics.
Yeah, let's open it up for questions. And I'll start with just asking the group, as we're talking about measurement, what is your district doing as far as, are you getting questions from the board? Are you getting questions from parents on student measurement or student performance? I'd just like to ask the group to kind of go around and talk about how are you measuring and what are the questions that are being asked? Anybody willing to share? Is it a challenge?
Julie, can you repeat your question?
How are you measuring student performance from last spring? And as you go into this fall, thinking about some of the students being online or all of them being online, how are you measuring online performance, and how many questions are you getting from the board or from parents or superintendents on how to do that?
I think it depends on your role in the district. So I'm only going to speak from my position. I'm a technology coordinator for a K-12 district, and I know I was in the previous session about digital equity, right? And so we're focusing on making sure that all students do have the ability to stay connected as we move out of emergency learning to a true blended learning environment. And so are there lots of questions? What I've noticed over even the past few couple of years, as we have done some pilots of one-to-one programs, the question is always, how do you know what the kids are doing? Are they really engaged? I was very interested in some of the data that Adam presented as far as pulling in the SIS data along with the Google information. So that has been a question of mine. Is we know it's easy to see if a student logged in, but are you really connecting it with who's logging in? And I personally would like to see those drill down to those students that were issued devices that didn't have devices previously. So did their usage go up or did it go down? But then also, how can you tell the difference between a student using their school district issued device versus them using their own cell phone? So that's important too, because sometimes students are just using a cell phone to access that data. So then maybe their engagement is low because it's a smaller screen or because they have limited data versus using a district issued device. So then once we gave them a hotspot, did their engagement increase? Did we notice, I've looked at some other usage data, even within Bright Bites over the past 6 months, and how certain apps increased in March and April. So to look at how now more students are using No Red Ink or Newsela, but then other ones that during the school year, the usage was high, that went down. So what does that look like? I think definitely those questions are being asked, but no one truly was able to measure in that environment. So I think that's actually a future question that might be able to have a better answer once everyone finalizes their return to learn plan.
Right, and I appreciate that, and it is a big challenge, and so yeah, I appreciate kind of how you teed that up, and I think it is definitely a core component of what that return to learn plan might look like, and kind of tools that might help people do that.
And just to piggyback on that, Brandy, the way we do that is through simple survey items that we tie to the SIS, and this is actually Janesville, Wisconsin, but they asked that same question that you had just brought up. Which students have replied that they have cell phone only at this time? They have 5 students, and they could see that by name then, who those are to reach out. And so what the issues of equity, of access have become top of mind. And as you had mentioned, many districts have gotten the data around, and we've been talking about 90% of their students have engaged in e-learning. But who are the 10% that have not? And to then Will's point, they'd be able to plot them on a map to know where they live, or to then know what the potential barrier is to access is really where districts are focusing. And then they can communicate to their board who that 10% is, because they know who those students are.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. And will you expand on, as some districts are still looking at ABC scenarios of in-person, online, and then some alternative, why is having geography or being able to see a map as you're thinking about alternative schedules or half days or some of those, why is it helpful to see the geography of the students as you're moving them around? What is the benefit of that?
Yeah, so that is so important. And it's important because as school districts think about different ideas and different options, it can get really complex. So I know in our district, we've thought about everything from, well, you know, if we had to use a different school for a certain cohort of students, how would we do that? You know, what would the transportation look like? Exactly what neighborhoods would we select to go to this particular school to accommodate a larger number, or this particular school to accommodate a larger number? So us just looking at everything spatially really just put everything together for us. So, you know, we were able to look at a number of options and provide and easily share that data. And it's just easy to understand when you can present a map or show location points or things of that sort.
Absolutely. Are any districts in the meeting currently looking at doing, like Will talked about, like cohorts of students maybe that are different than their physically assigned buildings to accommodate this fall? So maybe having students that the online learning experience is just not ideal for them based on their needs. Are any districts looking at bringing those students in small groups into a physical building, or kind of what are the various scenarios that districts are talking about? Anybody? Well, what are the scenarios Richland 2 is thinking about as far as return to school?
So ultimately what we decided on was to return within all virtual platform. And we thought that was best because of our rising numbers. But future options, we're already starting to look at it. I think everyone's goal is to get our students back into our buildings for face-to-face learning. And so there's where we are exploring those options. That we haven't made any hard decisions yet. We're still looking at how things will play out with respect to transportation and some of the policy changes that are occurring here in South Carolina. But looking at this information spatially is definitely beneficial for us.
Thank you. And Brandy, what are the scenarios that are being looked at for you?
So for our school district, our school board just proposed, technically it's 3 options, but I'm going to say that each option still gives families the opportunity to choose 100% virtual if they so choose, right? So there is option number 1 is that the first 9 weeks, all students would be in a virtual environment, then making the decision moving forward after that to choose between a hybrid version or continue to do virtual learning. The second option is that the hybrid learning schedule, which again, even the hybrid learning schedule is the same K through 12, where you have 2 different groups of students. The first 2 days of the week, Monday and Tuesday, group 1 would be in person, but then group 2 would be in a virtual learning, right? And then Thursday and Friday, they swap. Every Wednesday would be set aside for small group instruction for those specific identified students, right? And then also mandatory or optional, I'll say optional, teacher professional development as well as staff meetings. So it kind of gives, and also cleaning, right? Building time to clean the building to get ready for the next group of students. And then the third option is just completely 100% virtual learning. And so we just open that up for input from parents, from staff, from the community. And then in, I think it's by August the 4th, then they'll give families the chance to opt in and choose actually what option they would like to have for their family, for their students.
A lot of moving parts for everybody. So I so appreciate everybody's time, and I just want to acknowledge the work that you're all doing, because this is it's important work and it's hard, and you're answering a lot of questions, and I know your schedules have a lot going on. So I really appreciate the work that you're doing, and I just want you to know that there's companies like ours and a lot of others that are really here to partner with you and try to come alongside to see how we can support and provide you some clear answers or some analytics or some data that can make the decisions a little bit more clear in a pretty foggy time. So I'm going to ask Adam and Will if you've got any closing comments.
No closing comments, Julie. Just want to say thank you and thank everyone who allowed me to have a little short time to talk about some of the things that we're doing in our district. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate your leadership and all that you're doing at Ridgeland too, and thank you for being. Any closing comments?
Again, we're thinking of everybody on the call. It's most certainly a challenging time. and just a pleasure to be part of a network to help one another work through this. So thanks again for the opportunity.
All right. Thanks, everybody.